Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Medford Community Development Board. I'll call the meeting to order. Let's begin with some obligatory procedural matters. The hearing of the Medford Community Development Board is being conducted via remote means. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. A reminder that anyone who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so by accessing the link that was included on the meeting agenda posted on the City of Medford's website. If despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide real-time access, we will post a recording of this meeting on the city's website as soon as possible. A reminder that given the remote nature of this meeting, tonight all votes from the board will be made by roll call. Please know that you can access all project materials for the project before the board, which can be reviewed on the city's website, which is medfordma.org. And you can look under current CD board filings. And Danielle will also put the link in the chat. I will do roll call attendance. Vice Chair Emily Hederman.
Present.
Peter Cowles.
Present.
Ari Fishman.
Present.
Pam Mariansky.
Present.
And myself, Jackie McPherson, present. Danielle, you want to introduce any city staff on the call?
Yes, myself, Danielle Evans, Senior Planner, Alicia Hunt, the Director of Planning, Development, Sustainability. We have Clem Doucette, who is our graduate student intern. And I believe Todd Blake, the Director of Traffic and Transportation is here. Yep, I see Todd now.
Okay, continuing to our first item this evening is 290 Salem Street, which is being continued from 4/17/24. It's a site plan review for special permit to allow the construction of 3-story mixed-use building to contain 7 residential units above ground floor commercial space. If we can please get a brief overall summary before the proponent goes, if the city can please provide that update.
Yes, so staff has been working with the applicant in the background in the interim between the meetings, had an excellent working session with the architect. Plans have been revised and staff is satisfied and happy with them and recommending your board approve them.
Okay, and if I can please have the applicant present any changes that you may have.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Adam Barnowski with Roberto Israel and Weiner on behalf of the applicant. We also have Jacob Levine here to walk through the changes that were made. As I understand it, the city might have the ability to share screen. He can walk through the changes. This is mostly out of the legal realm and really related to the design and comments that were made from the board and the changes that have been made since the last meeting. So if Jacob is available, and can walk through that.
So I could allow him to share the screen, or does he not have the technical abilities? As I'm happy to share my screen, but we could give that ability to him if he needed.
I think he doesn't have the ability.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could,
No
Danielle.
problem. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and everybody. This is Jacob Levine, the architect from SL Haas Group. I apologize that I can't share the screen myself tonight. I'm kind of on the move, but I've been working digitally with the city to revise this drawing set and really specifically looking at the top left corner and studying how we could do a better job of grounding the building, along with just trying to unify the facades. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of starting to scroll down through the images, I can share what's been updated. Starting really with the site plan has been updated. On the top left corner, you'll see black 90-degree shape. Essentially, we're going to propose about a 4-foot barrier to shield the cars from Park Street. So those coming down Park Street won't have such an open view of the cars. So that's represented in the top left corner adjacent to the sidewalk and the parking spots. Exactly. The parking has been revised a little bit to really fit underneath the building better in terms of the cars closest to the building. We also revised the footprint of the building, which we'll get into as we continue to move through this presentation. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of going to the landscape slide. Yep. Perfect. So on the landscape slide, you could kind of see that corner in the top left to shield the parking. We improved the landscape on the Park Street side itself, and we pulled the wall, which you'll see in the architectural prints, to cover bike storage and those cars closest to the building. So the building has more of a portal now instead of being up on stilts on the background. So we have all of our drawings now match in terms of the site layout, site configuration, landscape plan. So if we can continue on. And now you can kind of see on the left side where we have the row of parking and the bike storage, that black line on the left with the door did not exist before. So we really did create more of an entry. And if you could see the car in the top left corner, there's this small 3x2 little bite there. That's kind of going to hide the column and even do a better job at, bringing the building down to scale, which I'll show you out in the elevations and the 3D images that are coming. So we could continue on. Nothing changed here. So on the elevations, we're specifically looking now at the 3D image on the bottom right and the elevation bottom right. You can see now how I kind of brought the fascia board that was below the second floor down across the lowest floor to really create that portal. You can see the 4-foot brick fence or stone fence, whatever it might be, covering the parking. And then you can see that corner that I was discussing, which kind of looks like a bigger anchored column. And then the upgraded wall to cover the bike storage as well. So that whole facade is now just almost added, the entire coverage of most of my bike storage for security reasons. And now my parking is mostly shielded coming down Park Street. And I'm fairly confident that we did a good job not blocking any views coming out. I think, we want to play with the scale of the stone and stuff and make sure that it stands out and we still have some sort of signage so that pedestrians know what's to come. So if you could just go to my last slide. Oh, that one hasn't changed. Kind of reiterated that. I just want to show the 3D images. So now you could kind of see the top left corner image. All of that brickscape and that double storefront in the back is all new. And then you could see the column enclosure in that back left corner. And then again, our small 4-foot fence. So we're confident a driver would be able to kind of see over that fence, have a safe pull out and still have a safe pull in, and really try to do a better job at, what everyone's been asking for is the massing and the grounding to the site itself. So those are our upgrades. The floor plans themselves didn't change. How the building sits on the site didn't change. We've just been working with the town on looking at that corner. We also just kind of, you could see in this top left corner shot, looking at maybe where the balconies are, doing a matching composite material with the curtain wall corner, just to kind of break up that all gray massing when it's all time. So I just want to kind of point that out too. That was a good recommendation by the city. And I really appreciate everything. And any questions anyone has, we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Well, before I open up to the board, I just want to commend you guys on the differences between the first plans and these plans are significant. It may not be 100% right, but it's also at the point where we can see how much you've worked with the city to move forward. And I, for one, can appreciate that, especially with that curtain wall corner that we were concerned with the privacy on, so, and then the whole idea of the how an actual passerby will see the space. So I can appreciate that. I will open it up to the board for any other questions or concerns. No questions or concerns? No follow-up questions? Does the plan address overall concerns for the board?
Hey, Jackie, I have my hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Hi.
Hi, Emily, Vice Chair Hedman.
Through the chair, I think that those modifications are a great compromise. I really appreciate the work that the applicant did with the city to address our concerns. So, commend a job well done. I did hear the comment about changing the materiality of the balconies, and I just wanted to flag that and see if that's something we need to condition, to make sure that the applicant doesn't have to come back, just to kind of cover all of our bases. But other than that, job well done. Thank you for all your work on this.
Does the city have any advice on that?
Madam Chair, I believe that Director Hunt and I have been discussing, in light that we don't have, like a minor administrative review process that's codified in our ordinance, but we could condition language that would allow staff to review, certain things, so they wouldn't have to come back. We were trying to create like some boilerplate language, but we could also really, put some guardrails on what they can change with staff approval. So I would leave that to you all.
Then as for the special permit, are we still concerned with the parking? That's one of the questions that I have. I know that there was maybe condition tenants of only of the of that particular address could use it. Is that something that we're still working with?
I'm trying to call up the condition document. Let's see. I know that we added that to another property.
Do you mean, so one of the condition that we've started adding to the around parking has been that residents of this building would not be eligible for resident permit parking.
Yes.
We just leave it blanketly like that. And this might be a location that doesn't have resident permit parking right now. But we're saying to the property owner is do not tell your tenants that you'll always be able to just park on these streets, because if permit parking goes into effect, this building won't be eligible for it. You think you have enough parking on site, like you have to put your money where your mouth is. And I will advise it in Somerville, it's a very common condition and it's commonly monitored that all advertising for buildings indicate like that this apartments are not eligible for resident permit parking. People still want to live in Somerville though. And to address Emily's, like you could actually put in a condition that says, minor changes to the balconies and other aesthetics on the side could be approved by staff without returning to the CD board, because we don't literally have it in our zoning right now to say that what's not necessary to come back. And then the staff could just say like, oh, that's a dramatic change that's outside of our authority. You can say, minor changes, can be approved by the staff.
Hearing no further Seeing no further questions or hands raised from the board, because it is a public hearing, I will open it up for public comment. Those who wish to provide comments can use the raise hand feature or message Danielle in the comments. You can also send an email to ocd@medfordma.org. Before providing your comments, please state your name and address for the record. A reminder to all meeting participants to please refrain from using the chat function to provide comments, as it is not part of the public record. However, if a participant is having audio or other technical difficulties, this may be entered into the chat to alert myself and staff. Danielle, can you please manage the public comment queue and read any previously sent emails or letters?
I haven't received any comments or emails from this lately, and I don't see anyone with a hand raised that's on the Zoom call. Let me check the email one more time. Don't see anything there. I don't see anything in the OCD general mailbox either.
Okay, I will close the public comment period for this meeting and open it back up for deliberation between the board. And one of the things I wanted to lead with is I remember hearing this previously, and it was conditioned to the point where it's changed. It was almost a different project. So the fact that the applicant has addressed all of those issues and the concerns regarding the staff and has worked with the city, as well as addressed all of the additional input from the board, I have nothing further. So if at this point, if the board has anything further to say, other than that, I would look for a motion for the first part to approve the site plan for 290 Salem Street.
So I have the conditions document from prior. I just dropped it into the shared folder. Hopefully you guys can see that. That has all of the comments and from engineering and the fire department, which are mostly standard conditions, and then the health department's standard conditions. There was the one condition from Director Blake about considering reserving one of the parking spaces for the commercial use, but if you're going to, so that's something you consider if you think it's necessary or not. And then the other condition that you were just talking about, restricting the resident parking permits.
It's because the special permit is for retail uses until the city updates are allowed for that corridor, correct? Is that what we're doing a special permit for?
Yeah, the special permit is for the
so it'll be retail. So you're asking for us to condition a space a parking space be saved for that commercial use?
That was a comment from Director Blank. He's here. Oh, he's here. I'm calling him. Oh, and also member Calves also has his hand raised.
Yes. No, I was just waiting for you to Peter Couts.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to read back the conditions, but as we're adding more of them, so.
Okay. Peter, can you actually read what you have so far?
Sure. So far, based on what we've discussed this evening, I have conditioned that minor changes to the aesthetics and materials of the building can be approved by staff by city staff without having to be returned to this board. condition that residents of the building would not be eligible for resident permit parking, and this would be evident in advertising for leases in the building, and that the developer shall meet recommendations as set forth by city department heads. And that's as far as I got.
And so for the board to discuss the condition as recommended by Director Blake, that would not be captured in recommendations. That would have to be fleshed out for the parking space.
Yes, correct. I would
How does-
consider that a separate condition. When I'm saying city department heads recommendations, that's primarily the boilerplate language from the health department, the building department, fire department, etc.
Understood. Thank you. And so how does the board overall feel about Director Blake's recommendation to condition a parking space for commercial use only? Director Blake, I don't know if you want up, pardon me, Vice Chair Hedeman.
Sure. This might be controversial, but I don't think it's necessary. I mean, there's what, 7 units and how many parking spaces? I think we have 8 parking spaces and 7 units. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, maybe one of those parking spaces is a visitor spot for the residents. But I don't think it's necessary. Oh, interested in other feedback from other board members, though.
I have no opinion either way. Either way, I was going to offer if Director Blake could better explain that condition and reasons for it.
Yeah, this was kind of a lessons learned. There was a mixed use development with residential above and an office use that ended up becoming a dentist's office below. And then the city ends up getting complaints or questions regarding the employees of the dentist's office or visitors of that dentist's office. So it's just being mindful of that. And since it was 8 versus in the 7 units, it still allows for 1 per unit for residential use. So it was just trying to be mindful of that, because if, as Alicia pointed out, the parking conditions change on street in the future, say the side streets are resident permit, and then Salem Street itself is for customer turnover. Sometimes we have these issues with employee parking, which again, as other people pointed out, they could also take bike, bus, walk, and things like that. But 1 out of 8 seemed reasonable. Anyways, that was the thought process. But whatever the board decides, fine.
Thank you, Director Blake. Ari Fishman?
Thank you, and thank you, Director Blake, for the additional context. I appreciate the lessons learned. I think that, like Vice Chair Hedeman, I'm not completely sold, but I think one potential in-between option is that having some sort of a distinction between daytime use and nighttime use. Many residents will need a place to park their car overnight. Presumably most of the mixed use is during the day. I don't know if there's any mechanisms we have that can utilize that distinction to decrease parking tension in the neighborhood. And I leave it to people who know more about parking policy mechanisms than I do.
Vice Chair Hedeman?
I see that Peter has his hand up, and as he's the transportation expert, I'm going to defer to him before wasting any time on what I have to say.
Peter Klaus?
I was going to just kind of continue the discussion on what Ari was saying, and I don't think we can be kind of as specific as you would need, because especially now, post-COVID, with a lot of work from home, you can't guarantee that people will be in a certain place at a certain time. And while I appreciate the sentiment, I don't know that that's something that would be possible to regulate. at least not in terms of, or would not be possible to regulate on the property itself. You can certainly have when the city looks at street parking, you can certainly have basically what would be resident only for a timed at a overnight time, and then commercial during the day. But I don't think on the property itself and one of the off streets, especially on only one of the spots, you could really do that feasibly. But that's just my take.
Vice Chair Hedman, did you want to speak again?
Yeah, I agree with Peter. I think it's kind of an overreach. If we do want to say business, then we'll say business, but I don't think we need to regulate this for this property. And for all we know, like the applicant themselves may decide to, determine that it's a business only spot, but I think that's an overreach by us.
Director Blake?
Yeah, I'm happy with whatever the board decides. Just additional context is there is a mechanism, as Peter alluded to, in that other example I gave with the dentist's office. We did 2-hour except by permit daytime, overnight permit only. So that helped with customers. And then with employees, they could get a business permit that negates the 2 hours as well. So there are other mechanisms. It's just in the past that has come up where the businesses aren't necessarily accounted for in terms of providing for them. Yeah. So either way, it seems like there's different ways to handle it. In terms of enforcement, I agree with Peter that to sign it for certain hours, it's probably unlikely that you could enforce any such thing. So the only way, even in this process, requiring one of the to be business, it's really only tied to this permit process, and maybe it could be, deeded. Otherwise, nobody's going to be going on some property checking anyways, really. But
So it sounds like overall for the board, for this item, we're going to defer to the applicant, the property owner, to handle the parking in this case. So for the criteria to approve the site plan, if I can, Peter, not to put this back on you, but as the clerk, if I can ask for a motion with the conditions that you have collected, seeming as though the city is okay with those conditions as stated previously.
All right, so I will move to approve the special permit site plan review with the conditions that minor changes to the project can be approved by staff as their discretion, that residents of the proposed project would not be eligible for resident permit parking, and that the advertising for the units would reflect this, and that the applicant shall meet the recommendations set forth by city department heads.
Is there so that's Peter's motion. Is there a motion to accept, a second motion?
I'll second it.
So going back, Vice Chair Emily Hedman?
We're voting, right?
Yes, we're
Okay,
going to vote.
aye.
Sorry. Peter Cowles?
Aye.
Pam Mariansky?
Aye.
Ari Fishman?
Aye.
And because I was absent during the last meeting, but I am attesting to the fact that I have watched the meeting in full, I am also now eligible to vote, and I'm an aye. Now, to discuss, this is also a special permit to make sure that there are no adverse effects of the will outweigh the beneficial impacts. And that's looking at the social, economic, community needs, traffic flow and safety, adequacy of utilities and public services, compatibility with the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood, impacts on the natural environment, and the proposal's compatibility with the purposes of the city's comprehensive plan. What I can say is that it's way better than what's there now, and it will definitely transform the area. So I would look for a motion to approve the special permit to allow for the retail use at 290 Salem Street.
So moved.
A second motion? I asked for the motion, then a board member, I can't give the motion myself, so Peter has given the motion. And then
I
need a
second it.
Vice Chair Emily Hedeman,
Aye.
Peter Kaus,
Aye.
Ari Fishman,
Aye.
Pam Mariansky,
Aye.
and myself, Jackie McPherson. I'm an aye. Thank you, Attorney Banowski, and to the applicant and everyone else that represents the applicant. We appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The second item for tonight is 142 Mystic Avenue, Great American Bear Hall, to amend the approved site plan. It's a public hearing, so I will read the notice again. The Medford Community Development Board shall conduct a public hearing on May 15, 2024, after 6:30 p.m. via Zoom, remote video conferencing relative to a modification to an approved site plan review at 142 Mystic Ave, Medford, Massachusetts, 02155. The petitioner, Brian Zarther, on behalf of Great American Bear Hall LLC, proposes modifications to the access drive location, parking layout, and internal circulation drive aisles in order to comply with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation's approved access drive location. In addition, the petitioner seeks approval of signage that exceeds allowances of section 94, 6.2, which is under the headline of signs of the Medford zoning ordinance. If the board can please have an update from the city.
Madam Chair, before we start this, I believe Vice Chair Hedeman needs to leave for a work meeting. We thank her for being present for the 290 Salem due to the quorum issues. So we do have a quorum, so it would be Jackie, Peter, Ari, and Pam are still here, which is a quorum, so that we can proceed. But I want the record to reflect that.
Bye. Have a nice evening, everyone. Thank you.
Have a good night.
And yes, I will introduce the project. So this was before you, I've lost track of time, several months ago. I believe
that's a year ago. Yeah.
A year ago, has it? The second time you came back?
Yeah, a third time.
Two first, and then the second time was when the plans were more fully developed. And so I believe the members who have seen this is Jackie and maybe Ari or Peter. I'm not sure, but this is
this was one of Ari and my first meetings.
Okay.
Yes, I remember seeing this.
Yeah. But either way, it's a new public hearing. So anything from the past, it doesn't matter if you weren't present for all of those discussions. But anyways, during the all of the permitting process with the state, because it's a state road, they needed to get an access permit, and they actually did not grant the location that was proposed originally. So the driveway is further north on the site, which required changing the circulation and the landscaping, and it's not de minimis. So this needs to come back before you for an amendment. And also because some of the circulation changes, I think are actually for the better within the site, actually eliminates the need for some of the conditions. So we would be amending some of those conditions to eliminate some as they're no longer necessary.
So I'm Brian Zarther. I'm the applicant for the Great American Beer Hall, but I am going to hand this off to Michael Giuliano and Ben Minix of Eagle Brook to explain the changes we had to make.
Great, thank you. This is Ben Minix with Eaglebrook Engineering. Danielle, if I could please share my screen, I'd like to go over the two site plans.
I believe you should have sharing ability now.
There we go. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm showing here is the site plan previously approved. I'll just show this quickly so you can see some comparison with the new proposal. So this is the building, which is still proposed in the same location, approximately 18,000 square foot footprint with a proposed patio in this area here towards the south. And through the middle of the site with the driveway that was not approved is a two-way in and out driveway, and then parking along the north sideline of the property. As Danielle mentioned, this driveway location was not approved by Massachusetts Department of Transportation. So we had to go back to the drawing board with a location that DOT suggested and did finally approve. So I'll go to the current proposal. And if you have any questions, I can always jump back to this. So this is the current proposal, which was reviewed by Department of Transportation, Medford Engineering, and circulated among the departments for agreement. So the building, as previously mentioned, is in the same location. However, this driveway entrance, a two-way entrance and exit, has moved north on Mystic Avenue. There's a one-way circulation through the site. We have a 24-foot wide drive aisle. Again, still one way, but parking on both sides of that drive aisle. And then vehicles will exit around the north and then drive south on the exit drive aisle and exit at the driveway entrance. DOT wanted crosswalks replaced and moved on Mystic Ave and across Hancock Street. So we've coordinated with that to have circulation to the site for pedestrians from Mystic Ave and Hancock Street so they can access via an ADA path to the building along the front of the building and to the proposed patio area. We have additional landscaping with this proposal, approximately 1,100 square feet of additional landscaping and 1,700 square feet of open space. And that's not including any of the open patio. In speaking with Danielle the last couple of weeks, it was suggested that we add a landscaped island here so there's no more than 20 parking spaces within a row along the front of the building. We also increased the width of the landscaping along the north side. Previously, it was 5.6 feet of spacing. Now we have 7.5 feet. Mike or Brian, did I miss anything?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, this is Mike Giuliano with Eaglebrook, and the parking spaces, as far as the number from what was previously approved to what is currently proposed, is the same.
So I'd be happy to turn it over with any questions, or if you want to see additional sheets or anything.
Although we saw this a while, I will tell you that this came in so late that I have not wrapped my head around the differences. It would help for me anyways, just to help to speed this a little, to provide more time, not without just in haste. I don't want to do anything in haste, but at the same time, I need to be able to wrap this around my head. Can you please compare the changes? I need to better understand what these changes are.
Sure. If I put them side by side, tell me if you can see it or if you can't see it. Maybe it'll be too small, but I'll give it a shot. Are you able to see two site plans now?
Yes.
So we'll start with the driveway entrance, and you can see the location in reference to Hancock Street.
Mm-hmm.
across the street. So previously the driveway was proposed a little bit closer to Hancock Street. DOT did not want that location, one, for it being closer to Hancock Street, and with the new striping layout and traffic controls that are going on Mystic Ave. So the driveway was proposed farther north, farther away from Hancock Street. Now going into the site, the parking layout has almost flipped 180 degrees. Instead of parking opposite the drive aisle, now we're parking along the building with a one-way drive aisle all the way around. So instead of a two-way drive aisle, we have a one-way all around the site. And we also provide greater width on the north sideline of the property. Those are the major changes. Again, 100 parking spaces for both the previous layout and the current.
Thank you. Director Hunt?
I'm wondering if it would, since Mr. Minix is presenting that from an engineering perspective, from the like layman's perspective, what we were seeing here is that there was a parking lot and then a drive aisle between the parking lot, like a driveway, a road between the parking lot and the building, and everybody who parked had to cross across that. And the changing of this layout now means that approximately half the spaces will actually be up against the building, and not exactly right. There'll be the sidewalk and a buffer, but everybody who parks on that side of the parking lot will not have to cross either the parking lot or any drive lanes. They can get out of their car and walk right up onto the sidewalk next to the building. And then the other half will cross just the parking lot. And so that the through drive lane, where people are likely to drive faster because it's just a straight shot through with no parking, is actually up against the edge of the property. And there's no reason for anybody to ever be walking over there because it is just a drive aisle. So we were looking at it in the office as this is actually safer and more friendly for pedestrians, because of having the parking lot closer to the building and the one-way drive aisle further away. I'm wondering if I know I've sort of put opinion into that, but I just wanted to that's how we were seeing these changes. It also allows for all the handicap parking to be right up along the building area. And anybody who's having mobility issues can get out of their vehicles. That's the part you're seeing there, and then get right up onto the sidewalk. So we actually saw this as having some significant safety improvements for the way this is laid out. And DOT is kind of making them. So, I mean, honestly, I didn't like the idea that DOT was making them do anything against what we had already approved. But once I saw their new layout, I kind of was able to get over that.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I just want to concur that, when I first saw it, I remember thinking, oh gosh, changed, oh no. But then opening it and being like, oh, I actually like this better. The only bugger is that the permit that Mass DOT gave is restricting the left turn out. I don't know if that was mentioned yet.
No, I'm trying to figure out egress, and it's kind of hard. That's the one thing. So what's the egress situation?
So this is the main entrance to the building here. We have another door here, over here is a back, most likely worker entrance. There are also doors along the patio here. So we have a sidewalk going all along the building. Sidewalk and bike rack here with ADA access through to Mystic Ave sidewalk. And as far as the right turn only out of here, I'll show the approved DOT plans here. So along with the site improvements, DOT is requiring additional striping and paving on Mystic Ave. And I believe the reason for the right turn only is to comply with the layout of the striping and traffic flow on Mystic Ave. So they have a double yellow line in hatching here. So you'd have to take a right out of the site on Mystic Ave.
And not because it's in the same family, but Danielle, if I'm not mistaken, Atlas is built the same, right turn only, correct? When you come out, are you?
I'll defer to Director Blake on what the permit access is for next door.
Okay,
People can turn left out of Atlas.
you can turn
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I can't recall if there's. I do want to point out, in addition to what Danielle said, the permit for MassDOT also restricts left turns in. So essentially, it's only right out and only right in. That's the permit language.
Right. And my take is that it's because of that striping and traffic pattern that they have throughout the middle of Mystic Avenue.
Madam Chair, if I might ask Director Blake, is there any chance that we're going to have any influence over that? Because from an economic development and city perspective, I don't like it. And we didn't in our office even know that this was happening. And I do know that it's at this time, it's all paint, right? It's not like anybody is building a median or something.
From what I could see, it is paint. There is a sign on the property that R3-2, this is no left turn out. It doesn't appear that there's a no left turn in sign. Yeah, I didn't know if we want to delve into the traffic piece here or continue with the site and the improvements shown on this plan first, or however, which way people want to approach that.
Sorry, I got held up. I was looking at the transportation, so you can, however you want to proceed. I just wanted to, there was some clarifying questions that I had to wrap my head around.
Okay, so basically, I tend to agree with Alicia and Danielle in my professional opinion for the city, for the site layout itself. It's equal or a little better than the previous, probably. So, yeah, that's a good side effect of these changes. There were a couple of very minor things. The exit where the two arrows are in and out to the dead end parking area, there should probably be a stop sign and stop line there. And then the exit out from the one-way drive, same thing, stop line, stop sign, and possibly do not enter signs so that someone coming in from Mystic doesn't accidentally go left of the island, even though there is a keep right. You could and that's just minor things, signage.
That makes sense.
So then the people exiting would stop and kind of yield to anyone and coming in from the main drive. So that's for the site. Everything else Danielle and Alicia said I agree with. So off-site, we could probably go back to the MassDOT page. So off-site, yeah, they likely added those restrictions. I can't speak for them, but it's probably a safety concern they had for the turning restrictions, but it does have impacts to the city for other things. Briefly, I'll talk about the plan shown here, all the markings. They did accommodate, it looks like MassDOT agreed with my suggestion in one of the conditions to drop the second lane on Mystic Ave northbound before reaching Hancock Street. So then by the time a vehicle reaches Hancock Street, especially the crosswalk, they're already in a single lane northbound instead of two lanes, because two lanes are more challenging for safety for a crosswalk than one lane. We get more compliance with one lane for people yielding. So that's a good change so that occurred. I would note on this plan, it does show the proposed RRFBs for the crosswalk, which was in my original condition recommendations, but it wasn't part of the original approval, but MassDOT apparently required that as well. So one on each side of the street, so that's good. So yeah, the downside is because of those restrictions, it's pushing all the entries and exits to a particular side of Mystic Ave, the north side or south side, right? So basically when people exit the driveway, instead of being able to take a left, if they're destined to the south, Somerville or Point South, they're going to have to go right onto Mystic Ave North. And the first available option is Hancock Court on the left. The next available option is Reardon Road on the right, to be able to kind of do a big jug handle and circle back to the south. And then the way that directions bring you, because those two streets are private ways and they don't typically offer those, the directions will direct people all the way up to Main Street where the police station is, to take a right onto 16 and do a jug handle back to Mystic Ave. So that's the complication with that restriction. Really adds a lot of unnecessary vehicle miles and puts people into an area that near the fire police station, which is already a heavily traveled area. So same thing with coming southbound. If you can't take a left in and people were going to obey that legally, they might tend to come down from the north heading south on Mystic Ave and take a right on Hancock Court to hit Hancock Ave and Hancock Street to kind of circle around and come out Hancock and go into the proper way. So it really kind of changes the dynamics of the whole entry and exit to this site. And, it doesn't appear that in the information provided, it doesn't appear that the project made an attempt at, adjusting any of the traffic study to explain what the impacts may be. So I'm trying to highlight what I think they could be. I think Hancock Court and Hancock Ave could see impacts from this restriction, and possibly Reardon Road. And if not either of those, the Main Street corridor up near Main itself would see additional traffic that it didn't necessarily need to. One potential way to alleviate some of this would be if there was a back exit out from the back of the property onto 16, but that would require an access permit request to MassDOT. But that would enable people right in, right out to turn right to southbound when they're exiting and come from the north, turning right in. So that would help alleviate, but I couldn't speak to whether the likelihood of that permit or not. But that's one way to potentially kind of address the ability for people visiting the site to travel to the south when they exit or come here from the north a little more directly.
Speaking with Danielle earlier, one of the concerns that I had with that actual option would be that the back of Mystic Valley Parkway or Route 16, the way it merges with that exit on I-93, that would be putting a lot of traffic, spilling a lot of traffic out at that traffic light coming on to Mystic Ave before you get to Mystic Ave. It's just the way Mystic Valley Parkway is set up, period.
100% correct. Yeah, 100% correct. It would introduce traffic to an already congested area that the DOT and us are already concerned about. But even without that driveway in the back, that's the way the directions is going to get someone north on Mystic Ave, turn right around the police station and come back south all the way down to that signal anyways. Mm-hmm. So either that or they'll circle left to Hancock Ave or left onto Main Street and come down Main Street through South Medford. So those are kind of the two options if you do a wider aerial view or like a 2,000-foot aerial view, kind of see the options. So yeah, if you go north up Mystic Ave, so you could turn left onto Hancock Court, which is a private street, and then another left onto Hancock Ave, then it left onto Hancock Street would bring you back to where you would have been if you took a left out of the site. And if you go all the way up and take a right on Reardon Road, which is essentially it's a private drive south of James Street, that would take you out to the backside of Mystic Valley Parkway. Or if you go up to the police station, same thing. So it's really hampering the ability of people to exit if they're destined south. And I think the traffic study mentioned that they thought 60% of the traffic was coming from the south, to and from the south. So, and it's not the project's, the project didn't propose this. It was required of them. But we're just trying to talk about what the impacts may be to the community after the fact.
Understood. Thank you, Director Blake. Director Hunt?
I just wanted to add that I think that I've been looking at these exits to the Mystic Valley Parkway in the back, and I think that it might be worth for some of the businesses to pursue it in general, but I don't think it's a short-term solution. I don't think anybody's going to get a yes from DOT in months. It probably would take years. So I wouldn't actually try to even condition anything on it because of the lack of likelihood of it. But I would like to, I do think it's a reasonable issue. And I had thought when I was thinking about it before that there was another one of the streets came back through onto Mystic Valley Parkway before Route 16, but you're right, we're after that part where the street where you can cut back onto it. So I just wanted to say that we would, from the planning office, support them and help them, but I don't think that it's not worth burdening a project that with something that is so impossible, and that it's not their fault that this was being pushed on them partway through construction. So.
And yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I don't want to speak against the state because they're there for a reason. And me working for a fellow state agency myself, I definitely understand. But I will tell you that economically, it could kill a project. And unless the city is looking at a feasibility of a traffic study for the entire strip where others can actually come in and pay for the impacts. And I can't even imagine what an access permit, not adding cost, but at the same time, adding time to this project. I just taking that into consideration. And yeah, it could in the future be like I'm not sure how the proponent feels about that anyways, but just in my experience, I know that it could be cumbersome. Danielle?
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely don't want to condition that they obtain an access permit, but I think as the property owner, I think it has to come from them. If they, an application would have to come from them because it would be an access off of their private property. So I don't think the city can apply on their behalf, but I think they ought to seek it, and we could support it. I don't know the details that go into it, so I would defer to Director Blake, because I do think it would behoove us to try to mitigate the impacts of not being able to travel south from this site, to keep cars from speeding through, especially the Hancock Court area is one I'm concerned about. Folks taking a ride out and immediately, banging a left into there and then flying through. Hancock Court is a private way, so I don't think that we can do things unilaterally. There would have to be an agreement with those property owners. If say we wanted to put speed hump in, or ask for the applicant to put a speed hump in there to mitigate that. I see Director Blake has his hand raised.
Yeah, so just to go along with what Danielle was saying, there are ways to potentially mitigate negative impacts to Hancock Court or Ridden Road or any of those two private ways. So some of which could be a speed hump or something like that, or restricting access in the form of making those right-in, right-outs, whether it's with flex post or median or something like that. But again, because they're private ways, it would be subject to the private ways agreeing to those things. Could be determined at a later date or a certain value or something like that. But those do seem like the most immediate options for people to exit or enter from the way that's restricted from the driveway. I want to point out that the MassDOT approval also included retiming of the traffic signal at Harvard Street and Mystic Ave and Route 16, which is the one we were saying is congested. So obviously by MassDOT requiring them to retime that, they already think that signal system needs work, and the state and the city have already discussed those in the past unrelated to projects, how it needs some work down there. But whether this project is, either way, this project would send traffic through at least that portion of that signal, because either they're traveling down Mystic Ave if the restriction wasn't in place and they'd go through that signal, or they'd go Mystic Valley Parkway in the backside and still end up going through that signal. But where the off ramp and 16 meet is definitely problematic. But it would be nice to try to come up with some way to mitigate the negative impacts to, say, Hancock Court and Hancock Ave, and possibly Redden Road too. But if we did so and those were successful, then the option leaving would go all the way back up to the police station area. So it's just a challenging situation that we're all put in right now with this. But we want it to make it work and be successful, right, without being an impact.
If I may, I mean, I don't mind applying for access out the back, but I just don't want it to take it as a condition to hold me up on my CO. Like we're, I'd say, I don't know, 70 to 75% through the project right now. We're set to open in July. But that was something I will do. It's just after just going through the Mass DOT process, it's timely.
No, Mr. Zarther, I myself, as just one board member, I wouldn't be comfortable conditioning that.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any comments or concerns from the board? Peter Cowles?
Yes, I just wanted to kind of summarize the situation and just kind of give kind of what I saw as the kind of short and long term. I think it's still worth it in the long term to pursue the access permit on Route 16, but I don't think that's like we said, something to condition the whole project on at this moment. As Mr. Zarther pointed out, they're almost done with the project. So I do think in the short term, some kind of attempt to seek to do traffic calming on the side streets where traffic would be diverted is probably the best available mitigation in the short term. And I would want to ask Director Blake or Director Hunt what the process would be like, because those are private ways, to get something in there.
It's a very good question. So there might be a way on public streets to address the Hancock issue, but it wouldn't necessarily be on Hancock Court itself. You could potentially put traffic calming in Hancock Ave, which Hancock Court, once you go down there, leads to Hancock Ave in both directions. So you could put a traffic calming device on a public street in either direction on Hancock Ave, potentially. That would be within the city's control. The private way, I think it would handle it if there was a recommendation that was associated with this project that, this evening or some other time. You could condition something in the form of some traffic calming element, this, or this, subject to the approval of the rightful owners of the private way. Almost like a lot of times we suggest traffic calming on state roads, but we say subject to Mass DOT. So it's subject to whoever has rights to make that decision on that road. It'll be kind of blazing a little new trail, but the easiest way that I've been thinking of handling this would be in terms of time. I am cognizant of the whole discussion about the time of the project and delays. In my experience, professional experience, being on the private or public side of previous developments, even though sometimes it's not preferred, sometimes it is preferred, money doesn't take any time. Offering money for a solution, like putting it set aside for that purpose to be determined at a later date, then you're not tied to a specific thing that has to be done before you open, type thing. So that's one way to handle it. But you could prescribe like speed humps at this location, public street or private street, subject to approval, or median or turn restriction at those, subject to their approval, or money in lieu of those types of improvements, some value. But yeah, that's the way I would go about doing it. I mean, again, if we're successful though, and we deter people from using those options, then the option that's left is all the way up to Maine at the police station. So there may be some that choose to illegally disobey those term restrictions, and those would be subject to the enforcement of the state police because it's on the state portion of Mystic Ave. We wouldn't advise that because if there's an incident, you would be at fault. But yeah, these are kind of the limited options it seems like we have at this point. I mean, if we had more time, what I'd normally suggest is for the traffic engineer for the project to study this and recommend something. You know, study what they believe the impacts are based on their trip distribution and what their recommendation would be. But you know, in the interest of time, we're trying to shortcut that process.
Thank you,
Thank
Director
you.
Blake.
Actually, if I can add, just it's worth it to say that in the past, in the original submission, usually any development, even this one, comes and discusses the scope of a traffic study. And I had suggested more locations of a scope for this project. And the project chose to just study this one intersection closest by. So that also impacts the ability to then go back and redistribute the traffic because the redistributed traffic wouldn't even go through the one study area intersection. So if it had included other intersections, you might be able to reuse some of the data and readjust the trip assignments.
Before I open it up to the public for comment, are there any other questions from the board? Okay, I do see that we just submitted a couple of people. I'm not sure if there's public, so I'm going to open it up at this point. Those who wish to provide comments can use the raise hand feature or message Danielle in the comments. You can also send an email to ocd@medford-ma.org. Before providing your comments, please state your name and address for the record. A reminder to all meeting participants to please refrain from using the chat function to provide comments as it is not part of the public record. However, if a participant is having audio or other technical difficulties, this may be entered into the chat to alert myself and staff. Danielle, can you please manage the comment queue and read any previous letters or emails that you've received prior to this meeting?
Madam Chair, I do not see any members of the public with raised hands, and I have not received any comment letters.
Something I can close the public comment queue for this meeting, or the public comment period for this meeting. And I'll go back to the board. For the city, can you actually provide us with the original? I know that there's some conditions that are no longer relevant with these changes. Can you remind us of those, of what still stands?
Yeah, so the control plans will be amended. The other conditions that were in there was the ones that are still relevant. I have not checked the landscaping plans to see if those plants are considered, like drought tolerant. But there's a condition to prioritize native species and plants with lower water needs. I don't have a green thumb. I couldn't tell you if these comply with that. So I would keep that condition. The conditions for the wayfinding signage would be modified. One of the conditions is, and I could share my screen at this point to go over these. Let's see, that'll just make it easier. Let's see here. Let's make sure. So. So do you guys see, this is the amended decision. So the beginning is the control plans, and then this one, so 2 B, that would still apply. We could keep that. So number 7 was applicant to furnish and install wayfinding signage and parking aisle markings, enforcing one-way circulation through the northern parking lot. We would want to revise that. Currently, there's a sign that says keep right, but I think it may benefit from having a do not enter sign there as well, so that when folks are entering, they don't shoot straight and then collide with a car. So in addition to the keep right, I think we should kind of augment the wayfinding with a do not enter. And also the stop line in the front parking lot, per Todd's comments. Number 8 is no longer relevant, as they did submit that plan. If we wanted to have a condition requesting them to apply for an access permit to Route 16, but not tied to must do, like must receive it or anything like that, but to go ahead and apply for it and see what happens. But because we can't apply for it, it'd be great if they would do that, but not tied to any approvals. And then with Director Blake's original conditions for mitigation, as he noted, the state required the, what are they called? The RFBs?
In my original recommendations, I think it was 1B and RFB. I don't think that made it into the city's prior approval, but MassDOT then required it anyways. So, the
so
traffic comments 1A and 1B were satisfied by the MassDOT plans.
And then so the remaining condition would be mitigation item I, which it is not referenced in this, but I can call up that one.
Yeah, Danielle, I could help while you're doing that. So the condition was written in such a way before that if some of the recommendations I had weren't approved by MassDOT, then they'd be substituted with another condition. So 1C, which was like a painted bump out essentially on Mystic Ave, MassDOT didn't agree with that. So then it would revert to I, which was a comment condition to traffic calm the side streets in the Pearl Street, Stern Street, Frederick Street area for any vehicles traveling to and from the west of the project, like say Tufts University area, via one of those side streets to Hancock Street. So that was condition I.
Danielle, did you provide us with these conditions? That's what I'm looking for.
So it's in the previous decision. And now
not-
this. So can you see the memo that's up here now?
Yes.
Yeah, so these are the conditions. So this is before I started writing the conditions where most of them were like, the conditions were would reference memos, and now I'm trying to call them out completely. So that's why there's a lot of back and forth here. This is during the handoff time where I wasn't staffing this board yet. So this is the, if then kind of conditions that Director Blake had. So the one that is still relevant would be this condition little I about mitigation of some of the side streets. that is under the city's purview. But the solar powered radar feedback, they did that. The state required it, so that doesn't need to be called out as a condition because it's on the plans.
Sorry, Danielle, that double I, that one was satisfied by a different project on the
Oh, a different project. You're right.
But we're still doing that though, isn't that? Don't we meet all the conditions with the Mass DOT? What we're doing there, so we didn't have to do the side streets.
Yeah, so if Danielle could scroll back up to the top. So what happened in the previous decision, if I may, Danielle, is so this was the recommended conditions that I submitted, but the decision did not include this full list. It included some of the list. So we were trying to go down which ones were included and which ones weren't. So if you go all the way up to the top, 1A is dropping the travel lane, which the MassDOT plan does. And that 1A was, correct me if I'm wrong, Danielle, that 1A was incorporated into the previous decision. So it was a condition, but MassDOT plan does satisfy that. So 1A is gone with the MassDOT plan. 1B was a recommendation I had made, but the decision did not include it, but MassDOT ended up including it on their own. So 1B is satisfied. 1C was included, I think, in the conditions of the previous approval, but MassDOT did not agree to that. So then that's what kicked the one down to the alternate, because 1C, MassDOT didn't agree. It went to a different condition because they didn't.
But we're doing the solar light on number 2 on the list. If you go down, we're doing that. It wasn't all the conditions. It was.
So number 2, that I don't think that was incorporated into the previous D, or number 2, I don't think was incorporated into the conditions of the previous. And then so I was, if for some reason the project was unable to fill 1A, B, or C, or D, so D wasn't incorporated in the decision, but C was, and they weren't able to fulfill it. So then it kicked into this I.
Well, what about if we go to 2 on the list, we're doing that. So I feel like we're going above and beyond, and I shouldn't be part of this.
The 1B above with the RFBs, that wasn't part of the planning board's decision. It was part of my recommendation. It wasn't part of the planning board decision, and MassDOT ended up incorporating that.
Yeah, so I guess my ask is to not do 1 because we're doing 2.
So this is the, Alicia, do you, so we have a conditions compliance tracking spreadsheet. I did not create this document, but it has 3 conditions. So one was to submit a plan to restructure the merging of the 2 northbound lanes. And so that's moot now because of the DOT plans. And then the 1C was provide enhancements to the new science markings layout from part A if the land structure is revised. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. But then
1C was essentially a painted bump out to shield the crosswalk on Mystic Ave, but they didn't agree to doing the delineators because MassDOT doesn't like maintaining those.
Mm-hmm. And so, so DOT didn't agree to that. And then the third condition that was in the decision basically said if DOT doesn't, so the one about the side streets off Main Street, that was a condition to be sued in the event that conditions 1A and 1C are not approved by MassDOT. And it sounds like MassDOT.
If you look at the condition below, it's the solar paneled traffic, which we are doing. So
I thought that was the crosswalk.
So yeah, MassDOT added in, they agreed with one of my recommended conditions that wasn't part of the official planning board approval. So it was basically an add-on. The RFB 1B, the RRFB, the planning board didn't include that in their decision, but MassDOT chose to add it. That is correct. But the way the previous approval was written, 1C was part of the board's decision, and that wasn't approved by MassDOT, so that kicked in the eye.
I was going to add, I realize that this is actually quite complicated at this point, and I think my recommendation would be that the board worry less about what were the previous conditions and more about what is the right thing to do here. What are the things that are necessary to make this project safe, like we would be doing? What is the applicant doing and already doing, whether we're requiring it or MassDOT? Because all along, this has been a project where cost has been a major issue, and MassDOT is requiring a bunch of him. So let's just make sure that what we're putting forward makes sense. And I honestly, I'm more concerned that what we're putting forward makes sense than whether we're including every single condition that was previously considered, particularly where MassDOT got in the middle of this and messed with our requirements. And I will note that Member Fishman has their hand up.
Yes, and before Ari goes, one of the things I wanted to note, Director Hunt, is that I haven't been properly prepped on this one. I'm not sure about the rest of the board to know even how to discuss conditions going forward, is what I meant. I don't know what the department heads, I don't recall what the department head suggestions are going forward. So that's the problem I'm having. So that's why I was trying to see.
Honestly, I didn't realize that there would be any need to change any conditions. I looked at this as this is a new site plan, that we were approving the new site plan. I didn't think that it was going to trigger any additional conditions. So it didn't occur to me that you would want to review the conditions and change them at this time. Especially this late in the game. I mean, honestly, to put in conditions on a project that hasn't gotten its building permit and hasn't started construction is something I wouldn't feel that it's fair to add any conditions to a project so far into construction as this is. I mean, if it's like, oh, well, that tree can't go there, so now we have to move it over here, but it's all site plan. It's moving some things around.
The beauty of what you have just said would have been relevant in a PDS memo prior to this meeting, and we could have been prepared.
I understand that, but we don't have that kind of freedom of time.
No, and I definitely understand that. But when you said fair, it would have helped to be more fair of everyone's time across the board. Ari Fishman?
I suppose this, well, I had this thought before Director Hunt's suggestion that we move away from that discussion. It is kind of slightly adjacent, which is I've been thinking about the discussions about right turns and left turns and the rather convoluted routes that people will have to take. And I'm thinking of it in light of the fact that alcohol impairs judgment even within legal driving limits. And I do have some concerns for the neighborhood neighbors and traffic patterns with convoluted paths that if this is hopefully a successful project, people will be coming from beyond the immediate neighborhood, people unfamiliar with the local small streets and potentially with judgment impaired. I have some traffic safety concerns. I don't know what the solution is, but I did want to explicitly name it.
Director Blake?
Yeah, I just wanted to state for the record, I wasn't adding conditions. Danielle and I were going through what conditions were still relevant or not after the MassDOT changes. The ads would be the right of the access permit request. That's an ad in the back, which I didn't necessarily suggest. And the traffic calm that we discussed earlier for Hancock Court or Ave, which we didn't get to the point of talking about them as conditions yet, just a conversation.
Thank you. Peter Cowles?
first, I'm going to echo Chair McPherson's concerns about the preparedness of this board, given really the level of sophistication of some of these traffic issues. I mean, I do understand the lack of capacity of PDS staff to deal with it, but I do want to express concern about trying to put all this through immediately. I mean, understanding the applicant's very legitimate concerns that this is a project that is going to open in the next few months, and we need to. He needs us to make some decisions, and then also doing my job as clerk. I've just wanted to kind of give a state of play on what we're considering, not taking into account the relevance or irrelevance of any particular conditions of the previous approval, but things we have discussed based on the new layout tonight, and that would be the additional signage and pavement markings, the stop signs, and the do not enter signs within the revised parking area as directed by specified by city staff. The application for an access permit on Route 16 not tied to any anything of the project opening, just they have to do it at some point. And the working with the city to apply some sort of traffic calming on Hancock Ave, I believe, is the public way. And that's what I have written down. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Danielle?
I just want to state that I also agree that you're probably not as prepared as you would like to be. I didn't get the memo and some of the plans until Monday, and I got the landscaping plan today. So there wasn't actually time to do any of those things. And the other plans came in Friday after our close of business. So I actually was doing stuff over the weekend for this. So I do try to make sure you guys are prepared, but you could take another meeting to button down the conditions. Would be June 5th would be the next one. Everything can be happening concurrently, I believe, but I defer to Director Hunt, who I noticed that our economic development director may be listening in. I'm not sure if he's available, but all the other city department reviews that are happening at the same time, and we're trying to organize this so that the project can be successful, but there are things that need to be addressed. And it's unfortunate that Mass DOT really threw in a monkey wrench here.
Thank you, Danielle. I really appreciate it. And trust me, as I definitely sympathize and I empathize with the lack of capacity on your end. And I'm not placing fault at this point at all. But at the same time, the owner should not be on the board to try to speed through something that we're not able to understand. And we understand that it's also not the applicant's fault. There's no fault being placed here. I'm not even going to blame MassDOT. They're doing their due diligence, right? It's one of those things where it's so complex. There's layers to this, and I'm just trying to better understand so that I can lead the board in making a decision forward. But I understand it's not fair to anyone across the board, whether it's the city, the applicant, or the board, in trying to rush this forward. I just need to know the best path forward.
I'd prefer to stay here all night if we could. I don't want to have to stop the project tomorrow.
Sal DiStefano?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Sal DiStefano, Director of Economic Development. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to say that definitely I understand your concerns, Madam Chair and members of the board, and just wanted to say that from our office, we think that the end result of this project will be very good for the city. And I am working with every single department head that's touching this project to work through any outstanding issues that we have. So we're putting a lot of effort into this to support Brian and everything he's working on. And in the end result, the everybody working together, I think, will result in a very good project. I do want to point out that this is a big project, more complicated than ones that we may be used to on the economic development side. However, I think it could serve as a template for other businesses that want to come to the city. And just want to say that I'm willing to work with all of you to try to see if we can smooth over any issues, and just want to be helpful to everybody that's involved here. And I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Peter Callis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's something that Mr. Zarther touched on that I think is important to note, and I'm not sure if that was. I don't know if anyone with the city can confirm this, as saying that he didn't want to have to shut down the project tomorrow, and I don't think any of our conditions, should we add them, would significantly impede the completion of the project. I think out of what I had written down, one of them isn't even on site and one of them is theoretical. So I just want to make sure, because I would agree. I'm professionally, I know these kind of project timelines, and I don't want to do anything that would force a stop to work this far in. So that's a consideration as well.
Thank you. Director Blake?
Yeah, I just want to give some dates for people. The VAI plans are dated February 2024. And so those are the plans submitted with the revised site layout. So that means the project knew about those changes before February when they submitted them.
We didn't have the approval from DOT until April 17th. As soon as I got approval, I emailed him. I didn't know if that was going to be approved or not. And I believe you were part of the last phone call with DOT.
So when I became aware of the new plans,
I also submitted this as Todd. I submitted this for my building permit. This is the same layout that the city has signed off on my building permit.
Yeah, if I may speak to the board. So some plans were submitted to some entities within the city, but not the planning board staff, to my knowledge. When I became aware of them, I sent those to the planning staff in March. And so I'm just alluding that there was some time and there was some, and we're being kind of put in this position now. We're talking, like for me, my piece, I'm talking about the traffic, what those restrictions that MassDOT created may impact, like how safety or access may happen. It has nothing to do with liking the project, not like the project. If it's a good project or not, it seems like a great project for the city in terms of use. But my job is traffic, right?
But I didn't have approval from DOT in February. If I had approval from DOT, I would have submitted that. I had no approval from DOT. As soon as I got approval, I submitted it. Even way before, back in September 5th, our building permit is based on this design.
Yeah, I'm not, discounting that.
So if you want to, I talked to Owen about it. I have my guys. Eagle Brook has been working with Owen this entire project. We've done everything the right way.
No, and many of us said it wasn't the project's fault in terms of
Thank you.
in terms of
Then I'm
mass,
just not looking to be held up by this,
well,
this one simple process.
in terms of MassDOT putting restrictions on turns, it's not your fault. But that doesn't negate our responsibility to comment on those things. So
I have no control over Mass DOT. None. I had no say in these changes. I did not want to make any of these changes. I didn't want to come back here tonight to do this. I was fine with the acceptance from last year. I have no control over Mass DOT.
Thank you so much, Director Blake. Peter Cowles?
I don't remember what I was going to say. Just that this is a difficult situation for everyone, and sorry.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation, but I want to make it absolutely clear that the board, again, the onus is neither on the board to make a decision without having the proper information going forward, because it wasn't our fault either. So it's unfortunate, but the onus is not on the board. However, in saying that, I will ask if the board wants to discuss these additional conditions, if there's something that we can come up with that is agreeable with both the board and the city that can make sense, that we can capture to move forward. Danielle?
If I may, I think the only issue that is controversial is any mitigation for the side streets that would be impacted. I think there was maybe confusion with the original decision about if MassDOT didn't approve the first two things and the third one would come in, which was in the decision. It's not big ticket items, just painted bump outs on some of those side streets. Not even physical things, not maybe flex posts, nothing big at all. And now with the left turn restriction, maybe something needs to happen. Maybe Hancock Court needs to be added to that list, because unfortunately the traffic study and the original mitigation recommendations were based on a completely different traffic flow. Now with traffic dispersing north and south, and now it's all going north. So I think that was just, should an extra street be added to the mix? But it's a private way. I mean, there could also be, just a loose condition of, making best efforts to work with those property owners. Unfortunately, the traffic counts didn't include those streets, so it's going to be hard to measure the impact post-opening. So we don't have pre-opening counts to be able to see how many more cars are going down Hancock Court, because we don't have those counts. So I believe Todd had requested a certain range, but we didn't have it. Everything else I think is pretty straightforward. We like the site. Everyone likes the site. We think it's fine. Just a few things. Just one thing. It's not going to shut the project down. I don't think we need to go there.
So we can condition it to make sure that the applicant is working with the city staff or department heads to move that forward, correct? To flesh that out.
Yeah, we can do that. If you want to, deputize city staff to work this out in a way that is amenable and isn't project killing in any way. We all want to see this succeed. I'm not sure July is actually going to happen based on what's out there. So see the emergency in rushing through this, but
If you want to come out tomorrow and see it, we're on a July 11th opening. So
I guess I'm Peter Cowles.
Yeah, I'm just going to run through the conditions again because I do think, as Danielle said, this is a lot of talk and a lot of noise for what in the end is not a lot of potential conditions. It's really not a lot at all. My list of conditions I have right now is to say that the conditions of the approval of May of 2023 shall still apply as relevant. Additional signage and pavement markings are to be added in the parking area as specified by city staff. This is just in regard to the do not enter signs and the stop signs and stop lines as specified by by Director Blake and Director Hunt. And there is the applicant shall explore applying for an access permit on Route 16 at the rear of the site. Kind of my wording to ensure that it has nothing to do with the opening or approval of the project in general, just as something we would like the applicant to explore. And that the applicant shall work with the city to install traffic calming measures on Hancock Avenue to minimize the danger of potential cut-through traffic. That Hancock Avenue was the one that was a public way, and so the city could work on. And that's all we were considering at this time, as far as I'm aware.
I'm sorry, Peter, did you mention the actual signage as the wayfinding as recommended?
Yes, that was, I mean, I could be more specific with the addition of the do not enter and stop signage, but that's.
Thank you. Ari Fishman?
Thank you. I am mostly happy with those conditions, which I think are entirely reasonable given that we're presented with a new site plan and we're trying to move promptly. My only kind of concern is limiting it only to Hancock Avenue. I'd love if we had a little bit more flexibility in that language around broader traffic calming in the area as we determine what the potential cut-through routes will likely be as the entrance and exit routes are more fully fleshed out, since it seems like that is still in a little bit of flux.
Thank you, Ari. I think that's what I meant by going back to the city staff and make sure that there was a minimal agreement on what was going to happen. Maybe I left that too broad.
Yeah, if we can make that language broad enough that it's to work with city staff to their satisfaction for that area rather than just Hancock Ave, I'm happy to delegate that to city staff. I trust their judgment. I just want to make sure that as we're looking at new traffic patterns that we're doing due diligence for our community.
Thank you. Peter Cowles? I
am just kind of rewriting what Ari put up to be a condition to make the applicant shall work with city staff to address potential cut through traffic as to apply traffic calming measures on streets as to apply traffic calming measures to alleviate cut through traffic on streets as determined by city staff.
Works for me.
Mr. Zarther, before we ask for a motion on those additional conditions, to approve your amendment, are you okay with those conditions?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I hope to get access out the back. I actually wanted to do it originally, and Victor Schrader actually told me to, have everything go on Mystic Ave. So I will absolutely try and get access out the back. I really like that.
Thank you very much. And again, it's just to explore that the fact that you're even going to try.
Yeah,
is all-
absolutely.
That was satisfied.
And I'll keep you updated every step of the way, like I did with DOT. So.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to,
May I ask a question as well? This is Ben Minix.
Yes.
If it's possible, could the board or maybe the traffic department, if they feel so inclined, make a recommendation for Brian to submit to DOT for an access permit? Just a letter of recommendation or a request to why the board feels it's a better recommendation for access.
The board, in our position, you would use it as a condition, but would that be PDS staff that would make the recommendation for why?
To Madam, through the chair, to Mass DOT to support that application. I think that we have like a laundry list of reasons why we want to support that. If they keep doing this, it's going to really mess up redevelopment of Mystic Ave, which is such a key corridor that the state's going to need to invest putting more traffic lights and stuff in there to allow left turns, or they can just give access to the rear. It's an economic development issue. I think that we could frame this many ways.
Yeah.
So I think what I heard Mr. Minix say was that you would like it if we made it a condition that the applicant request or approach DOT about it, because then you could go to DOT and saying, look, it was the city who's saying we should do this. I just want to be clear.
No, I was just, I guess, informally asking, and we can.
Would we do a letter of support?
Yeah, and we could send you a request informally outside of the meeting just for that request.
Okay.
I guess outside of a condition.
Yes. So outside of a condition, and then yes, our economic development director can work with our traffic staff at putting something together to DOT.
Thank you.
And then I can only imagine that the board's recommendation to explore that would back that up. I think that's sufficient. Okay, so I am going to ask the clerk for a motion to approve the amendment to the site plan as he has already recited conditions.
Yes, I would like to move to approve the amendment to the site plan with the following conditions, stating that the conditions relating to the approval of May of 2023 shall still apply as relevant, that additional do not enter signage and stop signage and stop line markings are to be added in the parking area as specified by city staff. The applicant shall apply for an access permit on Route 16 at the rear of the site, and the applicant shall work to apply traffic calming measures on streets in the surrounding neighborhood as determined by city staff. And that's so moved.
Okay, and can I have a second?
I second.
Okay, so Peter Calves,
Aye.
Ari Fishman,
Aye.
Pam Mariansky,
Aye.
and myself, Jackie McPherson. I'm an aye. Thank you for your patience, Mrs. Arthur. I hope that it is going to be a little, smooth sailing from here for you. I'm sorry about
Thank
the
you.
inconvenience.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. I like to think I'm passionate, but I know it comes off as something else.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I think we're all waiting for it to open. Trust me.
Awesome.
We're all waiting
Thank you
for
so
it.
much.
All right. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The next item on our meeting is approval of minutes from 5/1/24. Can I have a motion to approve?
I so move. Oh, I'll second.
Okay, roll call. Peter Cowles,
Aye.
Ari Fishman,
Aye.
Pam Mariansky,
Aye.
and myself, Jackie McPherson. I'm an aye. And so number 4 would be zoning overhaul updates. Alicia will provide an update. Director Hunt?
So we've been moving along. I've been trying to forward you stuff as soon as we get them. The consultant's been providing memos to the council. Right now, the council is on track. And Danielle, catch me if I'm wrong on this, but what we'd like to do is they are going to review. So they reviewed a bunch of stuff last week that they liked. That we're adding definitions, can't talk, into the zoning. And part of what they were framing this is as first, we want to add some definitions so that they exist in our zoning. For example, coffee shops, right? I don't know if that's one of the ones, but like, let's put some definitions in, have them exist. Another one that is definitely on the list is doggy daycares. And then after that's all been approved and gone through the process, then while we're looking at maps and zones and corridors, we'll have these additional items that we could be adding to the use table to either include or exclude. So you'll actually see that there are some that they'd like to regulate doggy daycares different from kennels. And that's an idea that's been put forward. And there's a definition on there for, I don't have the exact right words, but a junkyard basically. And part of that is because right now there's nothing in our zoning that says, no, you can't put a junkyard in Medford. Like you have to say, well, what is that? The closest thing to that in our zoning. And the idea is that the consultant thinks we might want to say, no, that's not allowed in any zones explicitly so that it's not a question. So a bunch of those. So this stage is definitions coming forward so that they'll be there as tools in the toolbox when we start looking at the corridors and squares and zones. Another thing is changing up of the tables in order for formatting. Right now, the use table is a table that has in next to all the uses a code A, B, C, D, or E for what kind of parking requirement there is. So the recommendation and those codes are in a separate table. And so the recommendation is to take the codes out and just put the parking right there in the use table. So you don't have to be going back and forth to different things with no changes to any of what we're actually like what's actually allowed, just formatting. So that's getting ready to come through in a zoning packet to this board. With, again, the idea that we might want to change what some of the parking requirements are in the city, but it sure would be a lot easier if it was in the table of uses and not a separate table that we're going back and forth with. So these things, along with a couple of other things that the lawyer is looking at more closely, the city council is going to have another meeting. Tonight is no wonder I'm confused. My calendar on my wall is April. I was trying to give you dates. All right. So tonight is the 15th. They're going to be looking at them again, the 22nd. And then the intention is that at their meeting, that is the city council on the 28th of May is going to refer the packet to this board for a public hearing. And Danielle, did we say that we thought we could open that public hearing on June 5th? Because I think that they were hoping to get it back to the city council by June 8th.
That sounds like the right.
So we're going to advertise the hearing before it's actually referred from the city council, simply to do the 2 weeks. But you'll see the packet. It'll be available by the 22nd, right? I'm getting these right. 22nd, 28th. So we keep sending you the things that are coming through from the memos, and I'd encourage you to read them because that'll help keep you sort of like, oh, this is what they're looking at. And if at any time you see anything on any of these memos and you go, I don't understand, or I hate it, or I have a big concern, please tell us right away, because you may be seeing something that we hadn't thought of. That is 100% possible. We look at it from one perspective. You guys see things differently. So definitely let us know if you see something that you're like, this is weird. And it may just be that we all thought it was weird and then we'll change it. But my goal is to sort of have these things come through. Everybody gets a chance to see them when they're in the early discussion phases. And then so that by the time that you're seeing it at the public hearing, it's not the very first time you've ever seen these things. They would have been in the memos that have been coming through to you. And if you wanted to ask questions about stuff in those memos in one of these meetings, that's why this is an agenda item. You can bring it to the meeting and ask about it. And if you would rather just reach out individually or whatever, we're very happy to do that as well. But for the most part, things are clerical. The one thing there's one, what I would think of as a significant zoning change that we have asked them to move forward now. And that is, it has come to my attention that in most communities, municipal buildings are not held to the zoning rules. Like if you want to put your city hall or your school or your fire station with different setbacks or whatever, for whatever government reason, you don't actually have to go and get a variance for it. So one of the things that we're looking at is to have municipal buildings be treated like Dover items. Conceptually, it would be a separate section, but it would basically say that the zoning rules don't apply to municipal buildings, but if they trigger if they are the triggers for a major project, they would still go through site plan review, with the idea that we would want all of those projects to come here through site plan review, but it would be about the things you all look at. And if the city says that, for example, for the business purposes of the city, we think that there should be a 0 lot line on the new fire headquarters at the back of the building, that is not something they have to go get a variance for, but it's rather that the city needs that override the zoning of the city. So that is conceptually a change. But I've also asked the consultants to provide just a little bit of background on the fact that apparently it's unusual that Medford zoning is actually being applied to our municipal buildings. So that's that. And I think that this idea of an administrative approval, that things that are small. So right now, there's in my opinion, this Great American Beer Hall site plan change is at a level that would not have triggered just a straight up administrative approval, but that there could be levels that are administrative approvals. Right now, if they want to change where a tree is or shift a crosswalk for some reason or anything, they can't do that without going back to the board. And there should be some level of ability to actually approve changes administratively at a staff level. So that's something that we have the consultants and the lawyer sort of working through. How do we define that and how do we decide that? I think that that's coming in this round that we're going to see, just because it keeps becoming a headache. So anything else, Danielle, that you think I should touch on all of that?
I think that's everything that's slated for this first. I don't know, was there any of the PDD changes? Was that going to try to come through this round? Or?
There might be. Jonathan. So as an FYI, Jonathan Silverstein, who is the lawyer that helped us with a bunch of the PDDs, is the lawyer that has been hired to help with the zoning changes. So as he helped us bring those projects through the permit process, the staff and he identified things that were weird or awkward or legally confusing. And so he was sort of trying to work through that to make some recommendations. And one of them might be to combine the PDD and the special permit so that a project would get its PDD. That wouldn't also need a special permit because it was now an as of right project. It would need site plan review. So it would just sort of change the levels of legality and 2 rounds of public notice for the same project at 2 boards, that kind of stuff. So he was reviewing that and he's going to come back with some recommendations for next week.
And through the chair, some of these processes that we've gone through, you've lived through how clunky they are. So I think other things are clunky. Let us know.
And
It's
so
kind of
May,
until you do it, you don't know that there's an issue with that thing in the zoning.
so May 22nd is the first, is another city council. What are they doing at that meeting?
Hold on. I keep looking at, the calendar. So May 22nd will be in the city council chambers and on Zoom.
Is that subcommittee? Or is that?
It is, yes, it is the
Okay.
city council planning and zoning committee. Sorry, I was just pulling these up. And we've actually scheduled those out several, into the next month or two. So if it's at all helpful, it's called the City Council Planning and Permitting Committee. And it's mildly unclear to me if it's actually a subcommittee or if it's a committee of the whole. It's not on the calendar yet, but it is going to occur. We have scheduled it with the City Council. If you want us to send you the dates, we've already scheduled with them to meet with them in June as well. We're happy to do that.
And that's just to get moving for the packet is not going to come back. So I'm trying to figure out the tasks that are coming down the line. May 22nd is a meeting.
And that's a council meeting. But if you were to watch that, that would really prep you for what everything is going to come in the packet for this board. The city council meets only once a month in in July and August. And so we've been trying to push the concerns to move these forward so that the council could actually vote in June before they go on summer recess on some of these changes. So it is. Mhm.
May 28th is when we'll be getting the packet that they're going to refer back to us for the zoning amendment changes. And then they're going to want that back by June 5th, you said?
No, June 5th is the meeting, is this board's meeting.
Oh, yes.
Say June 5th. So Danielle, we need to look at the advertising for this. That's coming up on us so fast. So June 5th is this board's meeting. And I wish, City Council is on here. So they have 2 meetings, the 11th and the 25th. So actually, this is perhaps a really good time to bring this up. This board meets the first and third Wednesdays. The third Wednesday in June is Juneteenth. Is
a week on Friday.
Closed. What?
I
didn't understand. We talked
so, I'm looking at my calendar. We generally have the whole schedule is mapped out for the year.
Okay.
We are not meeting on Juneteenth. Because it's first and third, except where noted. There is
okay.
So we're not. It's June.
So then
June 26th.
All right. When we were talking with the consultants, we were thinking that if this board needed to not pass it the first time, but to extend it, it would be June 19th because we weren't thinking about that. So it could come back to the city council by the 25th.
I mean, we could.
But I guess it is my feeling that if the board pays attention to these things that are coming through, perhaps watches the 22nd meeting, that the changes that are coming to you on the 5th are intended to not be big thought pieces. This is supposed to be the easy, low-hanging fruit. And that when we have the big thought pieces, that's when we're going to need multiple meetings to think about stuff and work things through. This is like the prep work. And city council's actually they're reviewing it so many times that by the time you send it back to them, they're gonna be ready to just approve it. And I have actually said to them that the appropriate times for them to make changes is earlier in the process before you get it. And that after it comes back from you, if they then think they need to make major changes, it would be because you changed something that they, like that kind of back and forth, that you should be seeing the version that they're comfortable with, since they are the ones working with the consultants to develop this material. And if any of you want to come to those meetings, you can, as long as it's not quorum, right? I'll ask Jonathan if you want to come, if you want to participate. Good. Is that at all helpful? I didn't mean to go on so long about this, but I feel like it's helpful to explain where things are going.
No, it's giving me context for myself. I'm not sure about the other board members. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's our next meeting. So kind of gives you a little preparation.
And I'll send an email about this to remind, but I'm going to be unable to attend the next meeting. I have another work conflict that Wednesday. Yeah, I put it in the calendar invite that I couldn't attend, but if you want me to send an email reminder, I'm happy to do that.
That's true. So we get it on May 28th and we meet on June 5th. So we'll be meeting to discuss city council's recommendations to get it back to them. Is that how? Okay.
Right. Every zoning has to go to the city council to be referred to you for a public hearing. You hold a public hearing on it, and then you send it to them and they hold a public hearing on it, and that's when they vote. And I don't want you to think that they're all going to feel rushed like this, because I think that there are going to be later ones that are going to be much more complicated, that we think we're really going to want to take a couple of meetings to work through, have the consultants come and work through them. And we'll confirm, but I'm certain that we're planning to have the consultant attend on the 5th.
Oh, thank you. And are there any other updates from board members? Any other questions that you have for city staff? Well, I just want to say that I obviously, I'm very appreciative of all of you, but I have to give a special shout out to Peter for the way you capture those conditions, because I stare and it's like I fumble and I'm trying to capture them myself on this end. And it's like, oh, you read them back. I'm like, wait, that's not what I got. So I really appreciate your diligence in getting them. So
No problem. Glad I could help it.
Okay, in saying that, the final item is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second motion to adjourn? No one?
Second.
Okay. Peter Cowles, roll call. Peter Cowles,
Aye.
Ari Fishman,
Aye.
Pam Mariansky,
Aye.
and myself, Jackie McPherson. I am an aye. Thank you, everyone.